The topic today is love and self-forgiveness. So, a lot of the time, I would get the images or feel like videos in my head of me messing up, saying something wrong, or not behaving well, or something embarrassing. And you get this feeling of like, ugh, or guilt, just like so much guilt, even if it was an accident or something. And one of the exercises that I didn't invent, that is a mixture of something I read and a therapist I had in LA. So you have this idea that there's either like a rocket or like a long train track or something. The idea is that it goes off into the distance, and you can see like in the comic books where there's like ding, it goes into distance, and it's like a spark of light, and then it's just like gone into like the end of the ever expanding universe. And so I put the feeling of guilt, which I pictured just as the word guilt, in this cardboard box, kind of like a moving box, and I put it in this little kind of wagon, or and then this just goes on this infinite track, and I just see it disappear. And before, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna change. So that's like learned helplessness. This is just the way I'm built and the way that I am, and this is the only life that I've known. I've only known about me making myself feel even more guilty. So what gives me ever the speck of faith that I could potentially change? And why am I putting in all this effort? I'm just like gaslighting myself, thinking that I'm gonna ever change. This is just who I am. Like, let's just embrace it and save ourselves the pain of yet another disappointment when I am inevitably going to feel guilty again. So this is all the thoughts in my head. And so that is learned helplessness, like, nothing's gonna change, or bashing myself and being like, you're just this is the way it is, and like, or trying to rush myself into changing, or the judgment of why I even felt guilty again, or why these videos kept playing in my head, kind of like the idea of like you're lying in bed and you remember these things. Now, for that, I do recommend, I play meditations at night, and I just like completely zone out, and I sleep wonderful most of the time. Sometimes I wake up because I need to use the restroom, but most of the time I can't sleep well. But yes, so that is a very helpful way. So I'm currently reading Cybernetics 2000. I haven't finished the book, but I think there's some helpful things that are showing up in there, which, and I'm not passing judgment on that book right now. There's some claims that this is more like pseudoscientific or something like that. Anyway, or that the experiments weren't done with enough people or something. But what I find helpful is the metaphor of, or analogy, I don't know, comparison of like, if you're training a horse, if you've ridden a horse, that you go straight down a path and then you turn right and then you come back down and then you go home, and that's like the path that horse has done for every single day, multiple times a day, and for many years. And that's a comparison of how I've trained my brain, or my brain has been trained by people around me, influential figures, or the media, or whatever. So I'm constantly feeling guilty, anxious, afraid, angry, whatever it is. And so it's really difficult if you're riding the horse to suddenly, no, we're turning left, we're not turning right. And the horse, like, no, that's not the way it is. So that metaphor or example really helped me understand that it takes time. Any change, like a habit, takes a lot of time. So instead of saying like, there it is again, the feeling of guilt, I knew it was gonna happen, that's just who I am, be like, oh, just like, it is what it is. Let it begin. And it's, I guess, like, not even having to have faith, or maybe it is a process, but just, I just put it in a little box, put it, and it goes out into space, and I know that eventually I'm gonna get better. And obviously, the first time you start doing these things, it's even more difficult because you've never consciously programmed yourself into change. You've just grown, and I'm saying you've, but I grew up and I adopted this mentality somehow, whether through trauma or the people around me, or with all the best intentions or the worst intentions, whatever. And then you're suddenly, as an adult, trying to retrain something that had just happened kind of without your awareness. So the first time it took so long to start making changes, because I was like, I've never done this before. I don't have any sort of evidence that this could ever help work, which of course, like, there is evidence of me playing an instrument for the first time and sucking and being so bad and having no evidence that I would ever be able to be good. And I still just got a heckler saying like I was like terrible guitar playing, and I never said, anyway, that's a story for another time. But the most beautiful thing that I wanted to share this as an example of, I guess, the moment where maybe it is possible to have a little bit more faith that this works is like I used to have this very negative thought of like I hate myself, and worse. And reasons why, just like I will never find joy or love or happiness or success, or and just and it was so visceral and constant. And like if I was walking the dogs, or if I was cooking or cleaning or shopping, or like it was just so, and I was like, that's but I did my meditations, and it's all like, it's not just one thing, right? It's like whenever we have a goal in life, and we're like, no, like say for instance, you're gonna get married, and you're gonna find a dress, and you're like, I'm gonna find a dress. Like it doesn't matter what happens, like I'm gonna have to go through all the different things in order to find that dress. And you just, or don't think about it. Or if someone needs something of you, you're like, I'm gonna do that person needs it. I don't care how long it takes, I'm gonna do it. So it's kind of that thing of mentality of whatever it takes, of the change. So I was doing meditations and like sleeping enough hours, drinking a lot of water, trying to implement positive changes in my life. And it may seem overwhelming, but knowing that it all will figure out, and it's okay if we are off track a little bit. It's kind of that flight and the radar, and you're like going a little bit off track, but you spend the whole like length of the flight trying to like recenter into that flight path. And and the most beautiful thing, I sometimes don't like sharing positive things, because I sometimes it's so easy, I think, to be like, oh yeah, that would happen for you, like well done, congrats, or that's never gonna happen to me, thank you for sharing, that's so alienated that something good happened for you. But just today, some meditations are terrible, and I'm like, I'm just wasting my time, this is so silly, if not another word. And um at the very least, sometimes I get to fall asleep or rest. And in this meditation, I got this sensation of love, right? So for me, love just like this warm feeling, and it spreads over my chest and into kind of my arms, tingly sensation. And I got this message in my head of I love myself. I love myself so much. But it's not just an affirmation. I could feel it like in the center of my being, and into like the soles of my feet. And like it's kind of like when you have an emotion that's like really strong, and you're like, which can be for good or bad, but and it's not the first time it's happened. So I was like, wow, this change is like a real thing, right? So that was the first thing. So when a video in my head plays of a moment that I felt guilty or whatever, I then say like, well, now I'm putting this into practice, that I don't know where it came from, but I'm saying like, I forgive myself. I think it's because I spent so much time trying to forgive unforgivable things that other person did to me. And I'm like, wow, why am I so eager to forgive them? Because I'm trying to not stay in the victimhood and woe is me. I'm trying to maybe create some positive change in my life. But how was I so eager to be on track to forgiving someone when I was so obstinately holding on to the reasons to feel guilty and not forgive myself? Make that make sense, Like I surely could forgive myself for much less things than that thing. So I would say like, oh, okay, the awareness of I'm feeling guilty, put it into a little track, say it into the distance. And then like the other thing I understood was in the second topic of forgiveness was like the affirmations. For many years I was like, oh, I love myself, but the feeling inside of me, my stomach, was like, my gut feeling was like, that's not true. And I was like, I don't know how, I'm just gonna keep repeating it because somehow I'm gonna believe it. And that just personally didn't work for me. But, or maybe it did on some conscious level, but not on the conscious level. And what I realized was that it's not just the words, but the feeling. And that's the part that I missed, which I'm sure they've said it multiple times, but I didn't really put it into play. So it's not just like I love myself. It's more like what does loving, the feeling of love feel inside of me? And maybe because I studied acting, you put yourself in these situations where a character may be like super happy that they got the job that they wanted. And maybe you're going through a tough day, but that character, when you're playing that scene, needs to be the happiest they've ever been. And you just do it, and so you get the wow, this like warm sensation, right? And maybe for each person, love may feel very different. Um, and I think that's something I heard in a YouTube video of Joe Dispenza, which was saying like we have in society this idea that I tell myself I need to go to nature to feel love and connection and stuff. And that's true. Like I love all those things, but it's not like I can't feel love because I'm not in nature, because that's a bit harsh. That right now I'm not in nature all the time. But the idea that instead of waiting for like something external, whether it's a glass of wine or being with friends or whatever it is I want to achieve, to then feel happy with myself, as opposed to like, let's do all those things. See the friends, go in nature, have a glass of wine, and all the while I can help myself feel grateful or a little bit more relaxed. And I know it's not always easy, and it's certainly, it's like meeting myself where I am at. It's all about like, instead of listening so much to what other people, including myself, including everybody, books and whatever, has to say about life, like what I love about meditation and this the journaling, that I've been journaling consistently now pretty much every single day, is giving myself that space to just be. And the other thing was to, and this is really hard to do, but do one thing at a time. So if I'm driving, to just be driving is so hard. Or if I'm journaling, like just be journaling. Don't have to be like listen to music and journaling. I'm like looking after the dogs, and and I know that's like a luxury. But I think it's in the spirit of giving yourself space to be present and stuff. I don't know. But I think that's really hard. But yeah, those were the 2 points. Forgiveness, self-forgiveness. Buddy, there's water right there. And maybe looking after the dogs is something that can be done anyway. And then the affirmations, going the deeper level, which is feeling. So instead of affirmations, should be feelingmations, something like that. And the funny thing that I found was when I was mentioning that, when I said, oh, I love myself, and then the gut feeling would be like, no, you don't. I understood that it was kind of like being in a toxic relationship with myself, because if you're with someone toxic, they can be like, I love you, I really love you. And you're like, I'm hearing you, but I'm not feeling that. You miss, I don't know, like you avoid calling me or texting me or calling me during the day, and you're I don't know, like shouting at me, and you get pissed off over like the smallest things. I feel like I'm in constant eggshells, like, or whatever, that's when you're with someone toxic. But why did I feel like that was a toxic relationship with myself? Is because I was saying like, I love you, but maybe I wasn't taking the time to feed myself correctly, or just say words of affirmation. I realized, there's the 5 love languages. Well, why can't I have 5 love languages with myself? I realized. And then I was having a session with this very spiritual person, and he was saying, ask yourself the question, what does Alessandra need to not burn out? And I was like, that's a weird question, but I'm gonna, follow the instructions. And I did. And I was like, okay, what does Alessandra need to not burn out? Okay, she needs a glass of water. What does Alessandra need to not burn out? I was like, oh, she needs some words of affirmation. So I'm like, I am so proud of you. Look at you. You're trying new things. You're putting yourself out there. You have so much strength and courage. And the way that you stood up to that guy, I'm like, this, super proud of you or whatever. And I feel like it's nice to, and that's because that's my love language. And I realized that was such an important kind of relationship that I wasn't nurturing. And again, these are just not again, I'm just saying these are things that I'm finding have an emotional shift in myself, which is how I'm measuring barometer of like, is this effective or not. And yeah, so that was it. It was forgiveness, self-forgiveness, and love, self-love. It's an affirmation, but it's a feeling-mation. There has to be another name, and but yes.